The origins of the centre go back to Deakin University initiative to bring together a number of researchers working in different areas, some in the creative arts, some in the social sciences, broadly across the humanities, with a view to seeing what important questions could be better answered by bringing our talents together.
So what I've got here is really briefly some major concepts and potential outcomes that we've sort of got a research plan happening in this sub-project. Northam, we've done a semi-literature review, partly mainly from Leone's, some great articles Leone's found, and we can compare the developments in Australian children's television with developments in Britain and elsewhere.
What are young adults afraid of? Economy's gloom, world catastrophe soon. What are young adults afraid of? This is one of the key questions underlying the project, and to frame it using the form of the trite little rhyme, what are little girls made of, or what are little boys made of, also shows one of the underlying questions. How are adults responding to the fears of young adults through the types of fiction they are writing for this particular age group?
This is Anne Vickery's description of our project. This project will investigate the cultural roles that poetry has today, whether it continues to have status as a privileged transporter of affect and why, and the kind of effects it may have on social bodies, whether this be a group of high school students, prisoners in a detention centre, or more broadly, a particular culture. So we really are looking at the social roles in a sense of what is, as I said, a particularly ancient kind of discourse.
I believe that the kind of work that we're trying to do, which Ursula will speak to first of all, is not about place in some organicist and possibly romantic sense. It's, to go back to a word this morning, it's actually about discourse. It's about the relationship between poetry and placemaking, because one of the vernacular forms of poetic speech that wasn't referred to today, but is place names, which are sort of the quintessential forms of white settler poetry. And so we're interested in how we start to understand the discourse of placemaking as offering us new ways of thinking about governance structure.
What was really came out of the struggle, I think, at the Point Nepean Quarantine Station, which is now part of the Point Nepean National Park on the end of the Mornington Peninsula, for those of you who don't know, was really trying to understand how we could govern a particular place, perhaps in a slightly different way. And there were many discussions about a new vision of a new place, and really, from my perspective, putting the concept of place or sense of place at the heart of governance.
The design was to put into dialogue a building design which Paul has been involved in, and Edmund Carter at Dice-Scores have made this amazing design for the Darwin Waterfront. And the design itself is sort of way too big to show you here. It's a design for a public building, a public space, an entire public site. The concept, to put it succinctly, comes down to the title, Pearl Mast Shell, and it's a lot about the effect of the tidal zone of that place creating movement around and through the zone. As the water comes in, the water goes out. Incredibly turbulent things. Fluid dynamics are the things that nobody ever in physics wants to have anything to do with. In animation, cloth, fur, and volumetric fluids are sort of the holy grail, because the maths is so complicated. They are not linear systems, they're not exactly chaotic systems, but they're kind of close. So when you start to think about those dynamics, there's a lot involved, there's a lot at stake. The way that's come about in the design, the building design, is, or my understanding, my paraphrase of it, is a series of circular pathways that are possible through the space. So concentric circular pathways, but they're not even, they're not exactly round, and they take their sort of morphology from the idea of the shell, and particularly the idea of grit in the middle of the shell, which produces the pearl.
I was just struck by the range of projects presented today, and incredibly exciting projects, I have to say, and also struck by the possibilities for synergies among them. And I think what the day has shown me is that conversation itself actually provides a really good model for research, whether that's practice-led or scholarly research.